Have you ever sat there, controller in hand, playing a horror game and realized that you weren't actually scared? Like, your heart wasn't racing, your palms weren't sweaty, you were just sort of going through the motions. Because honestly, that's where I've been with the series lately. And look, I'm not trying to throw shade at Village or anything. I played it, I enjoyed it, it was a total blast in its own way. But let's be real with each other for a second. Ethan Winters, the guy was a tank. He was a damage sponge with a dad complex. I mean, you could chop the guy's hand off and he'd just splash some juice on it and keep moving like he just got a paper cut. By the time we hit the factory section, I wasn't playing a survival horror game anymore, I was playing an action movie where the hero was just having a really bad day. But then I started looking into what's going on with Requiem and Gray's Ashcroft. And if the info out there is accurate, and I'm keeping my expectations in check here because we've been burned before, but if it's true, it sounds like Capcom is finally trying to make us uncomfortable again. Like, genuinely, deeply uncomfortable. And I think it all comes down to who Grace is. Or, more importantly, who she isn't. She isn't Special Forces, she isn't a boulder-punching steroid machine, she's an FBI technical analyst. But an analyst? That's a desk job. That's someone who spends their day staring at screens, looking for patterns and data, drinking stale coffee, and probably complaining about IT tickets. Throwing someone like that into the field isn't just a narrative choice, it's a gameplay statement. It means that when things go sideways, and you know they're going to go sideways, she isn't going to have a tactical solution. She's going to panic, and that is something we haven't really felt in a long time. The outline for the game talks about her being vulnerable and jumpy, and honestly, that sounds like exactly what the doctor ordered. I mean, imagine the difference in the actual moment-to-moment gameplay. If you're playing as Chris Redfield and a liquor drops from the ceiling, your brain goes into combat mode. You check your ammo, you line up the shot, you execute. You feel powerful. But if you're playing as Grace, a tech geek who's barely qualified to hold a gun, when that monster drops, she shouldn't be lining up a headshot, she should be hyperventilating. I really hope they lean into this hard. I want to see her hands shaking when I try to aim, I want the reticle to sway all over the place because she's terrified, I want the audio to get messed up, like that tinnitus ringing sound, because her heart rate is spiking so hard she can't hear properly. That's the kind of stuff that makes you scared. Because fear is contagious, right? If the character on screen is stoic and silent, I feel safe. But if the character is freaking out, if she's breathing hard, stumbling, muttering to herself that she doesn't want to die, that gets under your skin. That makes you check the corners of your own room. And then there's the whole Ashcrofting thing. I don't need to tell you guys who Alyssa Ashcroft is. If you were playing Outbreak back in the day, you know. You know she was the tough one, the reporter, the one who wouldn't let it go. Connecting Grace to Alyssa is such a smart move because it brings all that baggage without needing a 10-minute exposition dump. We know the history, we know what that name implies. But here's the kicker, Grace isn't Alyssa. Alyssa was hard-nosed, Grace sounds fragile. The narrative seems to be implying that she's dealing with a lot of trauma regarding her mom, and that's a totally different kind of weight than what we saw with Ethan. Ethan's motivation was pure protection. Save the kid, save the wife. It's noble, but it's simple. Grace's motivation seems to be about digging up ghosts. It's about legacy. And usually in this franchise, when you go digging into the past, you find things that are way worse than zombies. I'm really interested to see how they handle her being an analyst in the actual game mechanics too. Because if they just give her a gun and say, go shoot, it's going to be a wasted opportunity. If I'm playing a technical analyst, I want to solve problems like an analyst. I don't want to just find the blue key for the blue door. I want to hack security feeds. I want to reroute power to lock a pursuer in a hallway because I know I can't kill it. I want to use the environment. Think about it. If you can't fight, you have to think. And thinking is hard when you're panicking. That creates tension. It reminds me a little bit of what Alien Isolation did, or even the early Clock Tower games. You aren't the predator. You are very much the prey. And since Grace is supposedly dealing with all this internal psychological stuff, hallucinations, trauma responses, we might be looking at a game where we can't even trust what we're seeing. Is that monster real, or is Grace just losing it? And that brings me back to Ethan. Look, the faceless hero thing works for immersion up to a point. It lets you project yourself onto the character. But the problem is it also creates a distance. Ethan felt like a vehicle for the player. He didn't feel like a person I needed to protect, he felt like a camera on legs. Grace sounds like she's going to be a fully realized mess of a human being. And that makes her vulnerable, and vulnerability is scary. I think about the potential for the boss fights here. You guys know how it usually goes. Big arena, glowing weak point, unload all your ammo, win. Standard stuff. But with Grace, if she's really this terrified, unqualified field agent, how do you design a boss fight for her? Hopefully, you don't. Hopefully, the boss fights are just frantic, desperate attempts to escape. Imagine trying to crack a digital lock on a blast door while something massive is tearing the room apart behind you. You're not watching a health bar whittled down, you're watching a progress bar on a hacking tool tick up, agonizingly slow. And you can hear the heavy breathing of something right behind your neck. That's tension. That's the good stuff. It feels like the series is trying to pivot back to a more psychological style of horror, and I am here for it. We've had the action, we've had the camp. The RE4 remake was perfect, absolute masterpiece, but it was an action game. We were suplexing cultists with Leon. It was a riot, but I wasn't scared. I want Requiem to make me scared to open a door again. And I think the key to that is making us feel helpless. We haven't felt helpless in a long time. Even in the scary parts of 7, you knew you had a shotgun in your pocket. With Grace, even if you have a gun, the game seems to be suggesting that it might not be enough, or that she might not be steady enough to use it effectively. It's a bold move, honestly. Shifting from these larger-than-life heroes like Chris Redfield to someone who is basically just a regular person with a laptop and some childhood trauma, it's risky. Some people are going to hate it. They're going to miss the suplexes, they're going to miss the cheesy one-liners. But for us, for the people who have been here since the fixed camera days, I think this resonates. It feels grounded. It feels like they're acknowledging that the horror of this universe isn't just about the monsters. It's about what happens to the people who get caught in the gears of these massive conspiracies. Grace is one of those people. She's not a superhero. She's a legacy hire who got thrown into the deep end. And the fact that she's scared makes her relatable. Because if I was dropped into that world, if I saw the things we've seen in these games, I wouldn't be reloading my mag with a cool flick of the wrist. I'd be crying at a locker. Grace seems to be channeling that energy. And there's also something else too. The way the outline talks about her growing stronger. It doesn't say she becomes a commando. It says she adapts. That's an important distinction. It implies that by the end of the game, she's still going to be Grace. She's still going to be an analyst. She's just going to be a survivor. That arc from victim to survivor is way more compelling than soldier to better soldier. It's got heart. It makes the struggle feel worth it. So I'm trying not to get too hyped. I really am. We've only got rumors and outlines and a general vibe to go on. The game isn't in our hands yet. The mechanics could be clunky. The fear system could just be annoying screen blur. We don't know. But man, the potential for a protagonist who actually reflects the horror of the situation, that is exciting. It feels like a natural evolution. We've escalated the threat so much from a mansion to a city to the whole world that the only way to make it scary again is to de-escalate the hero. Make the hero smaller. Make the hero weaker. Make the hero human. If they nail this, if they actually commit to making Grace a terrified, shaken, desperate survivor rather than just the female Ethan, this could be the scariest entry we've seen in years. It could be a total game changer for the pacing of the series. I'm ready to be stressed out. I'm ready to feel that knot in my stomach. I'm ready to play a character who is just as afraid of the dark as I am. So, that for today. See you in next video. Until then, stay informed, stay excited.